Now, our second prelude and fugue in C minor. In this set, each major prelude and fugue is followed by the corresponding parallel minor. I wanted to mention one controversial choice I have made, which is to use pedal on these. A lot of the instruments in Bach's time keyboard instruments did not have pedals in the sense that we have them today, which sustain notes such that if I let go of the keys, the notes continue. So often modern performers don't use pedal either, even though we have them available, because the music is not written with the intent to use pedal to sustain these notes. I do it partly because, well, we'll see if I do it for all of these. But I want to sustain notes long enough that I can still hear the tonalities, not as well as if I had held it down with my fingers the correct way. Partly because I am going slower, or I should go slower, in order to get through these, since I'm sight reading them, and I don't want the sound of held notes to die before I get to the next set of notes that goes with that held note. And also just because it sounds a little bit, it can hide a lot of sloppiness. So I hear plenty of sloppiness in my playing when I am sight reading something and forcing myself to get through it and finish. And the pedal can not exactly mask that, but it can make it, to me, sound a little bit less egregiously terrible. But your different opinions there may be different opinions about that. So if you dislike this with the pedal, then encourage me to play some without pedal at all. This is the C minor Prelude and Fugue from the first book of the Well-Tempered Clavier. And this one is very famous, so people should know it or recognize it. But I have actually never played all the way through it, so hopefully I don't go so fast that I can't get through it. There we go. This piece is easier than I'm making it look, which is sad to me. Well, I think with the next piece, it will be time to decide just how much this project is about being vulnerable in the sense that the prelude made me, given that I did not perform particularly well with it. Even though, as I mentioned in the middle of it, it's actually, because of the pattern, once that pattern is sort of understood and memorized, it's actually not that difficult of a piece to understand and mechanically to play, I think. But what I'm finding interesting about this is that even in the areas that I struggle, that doesn't necessarily prevent me from having a nice resolution. So we'll see. I may start permitting myself to read these before I record them. And that will sort of make sense just because I have actually read through several of them, so when we get to some of the later ones, I will hopefully do better because I have seen the content entirely before. But I think that would be a bit at odds with the stated goal of having this be classical music in its roughest state. That said, this isn't actually necessarily a good example or a good demonstration of what a classical musician should be doing in terms of how to learn a piece. And as a sometimes piano teacher, I should probably consider whether that's something I want to be putting out there. Just read through these pieces. One value that I think reading sheet music has is you see a lot more content at the piano. You put yourself through a lot more compositions, and you imbibe them in a way that's a bit more intensive than merely listening to them than you would if you only played the pieces that you decided to learn. And so I still think there's value in reading through a piece without necessarily the intent to play it correctly. But we'll see just how strongly I stick to that goal throughout the rest of this project. So if you have actually listened to and or watched this, thank you, and let me know what you think.